Hi, welcome to lesson 7.5. Having a little technical difficulty, so I'm starting over. In example 1, we're finding the volume of a cube or rectangular solid. The cube has all three dimensions the same: the length, the width, and the height. So our formula for the volume of a cube is V equals S to the third power, or 1.5 to the third power in this example. To take something to the third power means to multiply it times itself 3 times. So if you do that, you should get 3.375 meters cubed. Volume is a measure of capacity, so it will always be units cubed. To take a number to the third power, you may be using this button on your calculator. It's called the caret key. Or depending on which calculator you have, you may use the Y to the X button. The only difference in a rectangular solid is all of our faces are going to be rectangles. So I've drawn a picture here, and the length it says is 5 meters, the width 3.2, and then the height is 4 meters. So as you are getting started, the volume of a rectangular solid formula is length times width times height. And then we just plug in those numbers. If you were to mix them up, it's not going to matter. As long as you have the right 3 numbers, the order doesn't matter. So when you multiply those 3 numbers in your calculator, you should get 64 meters cubed. There are lots and lots of formulas in this lesson, so make sure you're writing them down and can practice them and get them memorized for the test. You will not be provided the formulas on our test. These formulas are also in that ebook that is located on the Cengage WebAssign website. I'm going to try and write them down for each problem as we go as well, so you can make flashcards if you would like. That has worked well for my students in the past. Example 2 is to find the volume of a cylinder. It says the oil storage tank is in the shape of a cylinder, and it is 4 meters high and has a diameter of 6 meters. So I'm going to write D equals 6 meters and H equals 4 meters. The oil tank is 2/3 full. We're going to deal with that at the very end. Find the number of cubic meters, or meters cubed, of oil that is in the tank. Round to the nearest hundredth of a cubic meter. So we want to remember from circles that our diameter goes all the way across and our radius goes halfway across. For the volume of a cylinder, we're going to use the formula V equals pi r squared h. This is pi times r squared times h. R represents the radius, h represents the height, and pi is the pi button on our calculator. There's going to be 2 things that happen within the homework. Sometimes it's going to ask you for an exact answer. And if it does, it wants you to have a number times pi, like 5 pi. Then other times it's going to ask you for a decimal answer. And then you're going to take 5 times the pi button on your calculator. And that would be 15.7079, etc. So pay attention to which way it asks you to write your answer if you're doing your homework problems, because they are automatically graded. So for this problem, we're going to be doing a decimal answer since it says round to the nearest hundredth. We're still going to use the pi button on our calculator, but we do need the radius. Well, the diameter is 6, so that means that the radius is what? Yes, half of that, 3 meters. So I'm going to say equals pi times 3 squared times the height. Well, h is 4. And then you're going to grab your calculator, find that pi button, multiply by 3 squared. 3 squared means 3 times 3, or 9, and then multiply by 4. Again, make sure you're using the pi button on your calculator. And then we're rounding to the nearest hundredth, which is 2 decimal places. So if I round, I look to the number after. It's 5 or higher, so I round up. So that 9 is going to become a 10. So my 2 decimal answer is 113.10. That 0 is important. Meters cubed. Well, this represents the volume of the whole cylinder. Remember, I told you we'd deal with this 2/3 full at the very end. So one of the things that we want to pay attention to is this is the whole cylinder. And if it's 2/3 full of oil, then we're going to multiply this answer by 2/3 at the very end. So I'm going to grab my calculator, and I still have my 113.0973355 on the screen. I'm going to use that and multiply by 2/3. Now, to put 2/3 in your calculator, it depends on which kind of calculator you have. You might be able to use an ABC button, or you might just have to do parenthesis 2 divided by 3 parenthesis. So keep that in mind as well, that you need to make sure and know how to do that on your calculator. When I multiply by 2/3, I get 75.39822,369. Again, I didn't use my rounded answer. I used my exact decimal answer because it was still on my screen and multiplied by the 2/3. I only want to round once in a problem. So I'm going to round right now. Again, that 9, I have to look to the number after. It is going to be rounded up. So instead of 39, I'm going to have 75.40 meters cubed. Again, all volume is going to be units cubed. That is how full our silo is of oil. Okay. Let's keep looking at different shapes. We've done volume. Now we're going to switch and look at surface area. So we'll start out with the same shape, the surface area of a cone or cylinder. So in our first part, it says the diameter of the base of a cone is 5 meters. The slant height is 4 meters. Find the surface area of the cone and round to the nearest hundredth of a square meter. Well, first thing I'm going to do is draw in my cone picture. And whether you want to draw it up like that or like this, the base of a cone is going to be the circle part. So if you want it on the bottom, or if you care, if it's on the top or bottom, then draw either picture. Again, this one is the one that I'm going to use. The diameter is 5 meters. That means all the way across through the center is 5 meters. The slant height, so not this height, but the slant height is 4 meters. That's the slanted side right here. Find the surface area. Well, my surface area formula for a cone is pi r squared. That means pi times r plus pi r L. Notice I wrote L kind of funny. This is a cursive L, and it stands for the slant height. Again, that cursive L stands for the slant height in that formula. Surface area is an area measure. That means that our answer is going to be units squared. So let's plug in what we know. Pi is a button on our calculator. We need the radius squared. And then we'll need the radius and then that slant height. Well, our diameter is 5 meters. So if the diameter is 5, what's the radius? Hopefully you said 2.5. So I want 2.5 squared. And then I also need 2.5 over here because I have the radius over in this part of the formula. And then that slant height, which is 4. When you do this type of problem, get an answer for this piece, get an answer for this piece, and then we're going to add those two answers together. And again, our answer is going to be meters squared. I'm going to scoot it over because I need a little more space. Okay. So let's go ahead and do the left side. Grab that calculator, find your pi button, multiply by 2.5 squared, or 2.5 times 2.5. And I got 19.63495,408. And I'm just going to write the first 3 down just to save some time, but I'm going to keep all of it on my calculator. And then I'm going to do the right side. Pi times 2.5 times 4. And again, that is 31.415,92654. And when I add, I want to add those exact answers. So I can see those answers on my calculator. If you can't on yours, you might want to write them down, because I want to always start with the exact answer and then do my rounding. I'm rounding it to the nearest hundredth. So that's 2 decimal places. I look to the number after to see if I round up. It's not 5 or higher. So 51.05 meters squared. Again, 51.05 meters squared. Again, surface area is the outside of the shape. If we were going to wrap it in wrapping paper, always think of surface area as the outside. Now, the diameter of the base of a cylinder is going to be our next one. So again, I'm going to start by drawing a picture of my cylinder. The base is a circle. The top is a circle. So the diameter of the base is 6 feet. So I'm going to write D equals 6 right here. And I'm going to go ahead and just write R equals 3. The height is 8 feet. Find the surface area of the cylinder and round to the nearest hundredth. Well, here's our formula. Surface area of a cylinder is 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. Again, notice it's similar to the cone with some extra pieces. Same thing as we did with the cone. We want to get this answer, and we want to get this answer, and then add them together. So let's go ahead and fill in what we need to know. 2 times the pi button on our calculator times the radius, which is 3 squared. That's going to be our first part. We're going to add that to our second part. 2 times the pi button. Radius is 3, and our height is 8. All right, grab your calculator. 2 times the pi button times 3 squared, or 3 times 3, which is 9. So this left side is 56.54866,776. I have a little more room here, so I'm going to go ahead and just write it down. Then the right side, 2 times pi times 3 times 8, 150.7964474. Again, when I get ready to add, I want to add the exact values, all of those decimal places. I only want to round my answer once at the very end. So again, hopefully you're doing these problems with me, and check and see if your calculator has the same answer as mine. And then we're rounding it to hundredths, so 2 decimal places. So our final answer will be 207.35 feet squared. Again, if we were wrapping it in wrapping paper, that is the quantity we would need. Our last examples are going to be finding volume and surface area of a pyramid or a sphere. So we're just kind of doing different examples throughout here. There are, again, extras in the extra practice with other formulas that you should take some time and practice with. This is a square pyramid. Notice that the sides are 3 and 3. That means that the length and width are the same. Our height is 5 feet. The formula for the volume of a square pyramid is 1/3 times s squared times h. S is the side length of the square. H is the height of the pyramid. 1/3 will be a part of the volume of any pyramid. So the side length is 3 and our height is 5. Go ahead and multiply that out on your calculator, and you should get 15. Again, feet cubed, because we're doing volume. We will always have units cubed. With a sphere, hopefully you recognize that there's a circle in the center. And in this picture, our diameter is 3 centimeters, which makes our radius 1.5. We always want to pay attention to if we're given the radius or the diameter in anything involving a circle. Our volume formula for a sphere is 4/3 times pi times r cubed, or r to the 3rd power. So again, 4/3 times the pi button on our calculator. Our r is 1.5 to the 3rd power. Again, use that caret key or the y to the x key, depending on which calculator you have, to do your 3rd power. Again, I'm going to multiply by pi on my calculator, the pi button, and then my 1.5 to the third power. Hopefully you got 14.137166694. This one doesn't ask us to round to any certain value. So my rule of thumb is always 2 decimal places. So 14.14 centimeters cubed. Again, if the problem asks you to round it to a certain one, do round to that. All right, and then at the bottom here, I have surface area of those same 2 shapes. Again, we're going to be using the slant height. Notice that is labeled here in my diagram as 5. And the base of my pyramid is a square, and they are S's for the side lengths. Surface area of my pyramid is S squared plus 2SL. And remember that weird L is the slant height. We'll have a slant height with a pyramid or with a cone. So our side lengths are 4 squared, 2 times 4, and then our slant height is that 5. So 16 plus 2 times 4 times 5 is 40. Again, we always do each piece and then add together. So 56 meters. This is squared because we're doing surface area. In our sphere, our diameter is 2, which makes our radius 1. And our surface area formula is 4 times pi times r squared. Again, we want to use that pi button on our calculator. Our radius is 1. And so we have 4 times pi times 1 squared. And again, it didn't ask us to round to anything specific. So I'm going to do my rule of thumb, 2 decimal places. And I'm going to be rounding up. So my final answer is 12.57 centimeters squared. Again, please make sure you're writing down the formulas and check the ebook in the Cengage WebAssign website for more formulas and different types of problems to practice. You should be able to do your homework, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.